The wine glass never left his hand when he said it. That was the part I couldn't stop thinking about afterward. Not the words themselves, though those were bad enough. It was the casualness of it. The way my brother Marcus leaned back in his chair at our mother's dining room table, surrounded by the extended family he'd spent years positioning himself above, and said it like it cost him nothing at all. Honestly, Diane, 20 years and what do you have to show for it? You don't own property. You don't have a title anyone recognizes. You spend your whole career doing what, exactly? Things nobody's allowed to talk about. He laughed softly at his own joke. Several relatives smiled uncomfortably. My mother studied her plate, and I sat across from him in the dress I'd worn on the flight home from Bahrain, still carrying 8 hours of travel in my spine, and said nothing. Because I already knew something Marcus didn't. The paperwork had been filed 3 days ago. Before the story gets darker, like this video, subscribe to the channel, and tell me in the comments what city you are watching from. Because betrayal does not always come from enemies. Sometimes, it comes from the person who said they would wait for you. And sometimes, they forget who they are dealing with. My name is Diane Hargrove. I am 37 years old. For the past 19 years, I held the rank of commander in the United States Navy, Naval Intelligence Division, and for 16 of those years I operated in assignments so classified that even my own family signed non-disclosure acknowledgments before my deployment briefings could be partially summarized for them. I grew up in Clarksburg, West Virginia, the oldest of 3 children born to a schoolteacher mother and a father who worked 22 years in the mines before his lungs made that impossible. We were not a wealthy family. We were a proud one. There is a difference, and I understood it early. I earned my commission through ROTC at the University of Pittsburgh. I completed Naval Intelligence training in Pensacola. Over the following 2 decades, I deployed to the Persian Gulf, the Horn of Africa, and 3 rotations in the Pacific Theater. I earned the Defense Meritorious Service Medal twice. I led a signals intelligence team through an operation that prevented a coordinated attack on 2 Allied embassies in 2019, an operation that will likely remain classified for another 30 years. What I gave up to do it: a wedding I postponed twice, a pregnancy I lost during my 2nd deployment, and approximately 11 years of holidays with people who eventually stopped leaving a seat at the table. The one thing I never gave up was my clarity. And on the night Marcus made his joke, my clarity was already in motion. Marcus Hargrove was 2 years younger than me and had spent his entire adult life arranging the world to reward his particular talent, making people feel chosen. He had a lawyer's confidence without a lawyer's discipline. He wore expensive watches. He remembered names at parties. He had the kind of smile that made people instinctively trust him before they had reason to. He'd positioned himself as the family's success story while I was deployed. Not dishonestly, exactly. Marcus ran a regional development firm. He sat on 2 nonprofit boards. He attended our mother's birthday dinners with flowers and a prepared toast. But 3 years ago, he'd begun handling our mother's finances. She was 71, still sharp, but exhausted after our father's death. She trusted Marcus because he was present. Because I was not. The first red flag was small. A transfer I didn't recognize when I reviewed her accounts during my last stateside leave. I noted it. Then I was called back early and noted it again 6 months later when the amount had grown. Duty came first. It always did. That did not mean I forgot. The second flag appeared during a call from Bahrain. My mother mentioned, casually, that Marcus had suggested she move funds from her long-term savings account into what he called a consolidated management portfolio. She didn't know the institution. She couldn't remember if she had signed anything directly or whether Marcus had managed the forms on her behalf. I asked her to find the paperwork. She couldn't. I contacted our family attorney, a retired civilian named Gerald Oates, who had handled our father's estate. He told me he'd received a letter from Marcus 6 months prior informing him that our mother had designated a new financial advisor and that Gerald's services would no longer be required for account matters. My mother had not known Gerald received that letter. The third incident came from my cousin Patricia, who called me during a brief communications window between operations. She had been at a family dinner in October. Marcus had mentioned, apparently without concern, that our mother's house might need to be strategically repositioned given rising property taxes. He had suggested she consider downsizing. Our mother's house was paid off. Fully. My father had made certain of that before he died. There was no financial reason to sell it. The fourth thing was the smallest and the worst. When I finally returned stateside and reviewed the accounts my mother gave me access to, I found 19 months of statements. The pattern was careful. Small amounts, irregular intervals, different line items. Transfers labeled management fees, consulting charges from an LLC registered in Marcus's business partner's wife's name. 19 months, carefully constructed. Designed to look like administration. It was not administration. I sat at my mother's kitchen table for 40 minutes after I understood what I was looking at. She sat across from me. I told her I needed to make some calls. She nodded, trusting me completely. That broke something in me and hardened something else in the same breath. The full picture came together on a Thursday afternoon in February, 4 days before the welcome home dinner. I had contacted a civilian forensic accountant named Sandra Yee through a retired JAG officer I trusted, a woman named Colonel Anita Flores, who had helped me navigate the intersection of military and civilian legal systems. Twice before in my career, Sandra was methodical and fast. She confirmed what I suspected within 72 hours. The LLC Marcus had used was registered 18 months before our father's death. The pattern of transfers suggested premeditation, not opportunity. In total, across 19 months and 11 separate accounts, Marcus had redirected $234,000 from our mother's retirement savings, investment accounts, and the property equity line he had quietly persuaded her to open. Our mother had no idea the equity line existed. I read Sandra's report twice in my car, parked outside the hotel I was staying in before the family dinner. Then I forwarded it to two people, Colonel Flores and the civilian attorney she recommended, a woman named Rachel Kim who specialized in elder financial fraud. I did not cry. I had learned a long time ago that tears and operations run on separate schedules. I went inside, ordered coffee, and went to sleep early. There was nothing left to feel before the work was finished. Rachel Kim moved the way I imagined excellent attorneys always do when they have a clean case in front of them, with the particular calm of someone who has already counted the exits. Within 48 hours of receiving Sandra's forensic report, Rachel had filed a civil complaint with the county court, contacted the state attorney general's Elder Financial Abuse Division, and placed a legal hold on 3 of the LLC's associated accounts pending investigation. The hold was processed on a Wednesday. The welcome home dinner was Saturday. Marcus did not know any of it had happened. He had no reason to check. He believed I had spent 2 decades becoming someone the family politely didn't understand. He believed I was jet-lagged, emotionally distant, professionally invisible, and, crucially, financially uninformed about our mother's affairs. People reveal what they underestimate when they're comfortable. Marcus was very comfortable at that dinner. He had refilled his wine glass twice before he made his joke. He was smiling at his own reflection in the window behind my mother's chair when he said soldiers had nothing to show for themselves. I listened to every word. I had already shown plenty. He simply hadn't received the paperwork yet. The call came while we were still at the table. I know this because I watched it happen in real time. Marcus's phone lit up face down beside his dessert fork. He flipped it over, glanced at the number, frowned slightly, and excused himself toward the hallway. I heard him answer with the comfortable authority of a man who expected good news. He was in the hallway for 4 minutes. When he came back, the color had left his face. He stood in the doorway of the dining room with his phone held loosely at his side, looking at me the way people look at things they cannot immediately classify. Somewhere between confusion and the first cold understanding that they have miscalculated something badly, I set down my fork. "Everything all right, Marcus?" He didn't answer immediately. Our mother looked between us. I reached into the bag beside my chair and placed a manila folder on the table in front of him. Clean, labeled, organized with the same precision I used for classified briefing packages. 19 months of transaction records. Sandra's forensic analysis. Rachel's filed complaint. The account hold confirmation. Time-stamped Wednesday. He stared at the folder without touching it. I kept my voice even and quiet the way I had learned to give orders in high-pressure environments, not for dramatic effect, but because calm is the most precise instrument available when everything else is falling apart. "Rachel Kim will be in contact Monday morning," I said. "I'd recommend having an attorney by then." My brother sat down slowly. No one at the table laughed this time. The State Attorney General's office opened a formal elder financial fraud investigation within 3 weeks of Rachel's complaint filing. Sandra Yee testified as the forensic expert. Colonel Flores connected me with 2 additional Naval Intelligence legal contacts who helped ensure the documentation chain was airtight for civilian court proceedings. Rachel argued the case with the particular focused energy of someone who had been doing this work for 15 years and had never quite stopped being angry about it. Marcus's attorney attempted twice to characterize the transfers as informal family financial management made with our mother's verbal consent. Our mother sat in that courtroom in her good blue coat and told the judge, clearly and without any assistance, that she had never authorized a single one of those transfers. That she had not known the equity line existed. That she had trusted her son. She said that last part without looking at him. The civil judgment came down on a Tuesday. Full restitution of the redirected funds. Permanent removal of Marcus from any financial authority over our mother's accounts. Referral to the district attorney's office for potential criminal charges on 4 of the LLC transactions. Our mother cried quietly on the courthouse steps. I held her hand and said nothing. Some moments don't need words. They just need someone who stayed. The hardest part was not the legal process. The hardest part was the drive home from the courthouse, when my mother looked out the passenger window at the highway and said, very quietly, I kept thinking I was imagining it. I had heard versions of that sentence before. Not from family, from personnel in debrief after operations gone wrong. That particular shame people carry when betrayal happens slowly enough that they begin to doubt their own perception of it. You weren't imagining it, I said. She nodded once and didn't speak again for a long time. That evening, I sat alone in her kitchen after she had gone to sleep. The same kitchen where I had eaten cereal before school 30 years ago. Where my father had read the newspaper at the same chair every morning until he no longer could. I made 2 cups of tea out of habit and left one untouched at his place. Some grief doesn't require a reason. It just finds the quiet. I have given orders in war rooms. I have read casualty reports at 4 a.m. I have made decisions that I carried home inside my body for years because there was nowhere else to put them. I did not expect that protecting my mother's kitchen table would be the hardest operation of my career. But I have learned this. The skills that keep nations safe are the same ones that protect the people you love. Precision, patience, the willingness to act without applause and without permission. I spent 19 years becoming someone capable of that. It turned out my family needed her more than any theater of war ever did. If this story stayed with you, subscribe and leave your city in the comments. It means more than you know. I will see you in the next one.